So, we're going to have a conversation about, like, we're two people who've spent our adult lives helping people with their lives. And we're only doing that because we've been trying to help ourselves with our own lives. Like, there's no separation between the problems of people's lives and the problems of our own lives.
No.
All everything informs everything else. And I think that one of the beauties of the time we're in, like with this sort of disassembling of society and like people looking up to rock stars and film stars, but even gurus, is that there's this idea that people were supposed to be perfect. And I think it's like we're finally at a time where we can admit that we can be good enough to help other people while still just having our own little private shit shows going on.
So
So,
true. I
yeah.
somebody was telling me this weekend I don't know, it was like a guy they wanted to date or something, and they said like, "Well, are you interested in personal growth or any kind of, like spiritual path?" And the guy's like, yeah, probably not. And I'm thinking, like, how is that possible? It makes no sense. But it's exactly because I was like, he must be happy. Like, at least in my world, it's been suffering or confusion that's kind of propelled me to want to grow or change. So,
I think I think there's several things. One, to have the ability to have the insight and the big picture to help other people can only come from your own questioning of all the things that are going on for you. And I don't it doesn't necessarily mean like if I could be normal, I would. If I could have had, I tried actually. I've been married and had children. And so if you like, you do your best to have a human normal life. But I think those of us who end up in teacher things, just like anybody who's known for something or has a gift for something, it doesn't necessarily mean your life. You try to match up the wisdom that you give and the help you give to other people with your own life. But I think some people just aren't meant to search that deeply, and that everybody has their mission, their thing that they need to do. But here's, I think, a good entry point for why anybody watching this, or like why I thought if the two of us chat with each other, maybe this will be useful and interesting to other people. One, we're in this time where everybody's advertising, everybody's trying to like run their own businesses, and there's so many ways to describe things. We we want to be, you and I, we're authentic people. We want to stay in that authenticity and not feel like we have to change who we are to share what it is that we do. But sometimes that takes a little bit of unfolding. But the other thing is that because of the pandemic in the last 4 or 5 years, like there's been this speeding up process going on, and there's much more urgency in people to sort things out because there's just more pain and suffering on the outside, like in people's lives. And I think that for me, over in 30 years of doing breath work, like it's very powerful work, but maybe people didn't feel like they needed to do it because you could just go along doing what you were doing, and even if you were suffering in some ways you could avoid knowing about it. But we're not in that time anymore. And I think where you and I connect is you have a studio where you're serving people for their personal growth, and maybe you're just providing ongoing classes. But I know you better than that the calling is deeper, and the offering and the decision you made to even start your studio comes from that place of how to heal that deeper suffering. And so that time has come. And for me, a lot of people, they'll even say breath work, like Effiji Breathwork, this is the most profound thing I've ever done in my life, and I'll never do it again. like, and so over these years, people love it and hate it. And I always wonder, like, it was such a call to do this when I first did it. I wondered, well, why doesn't everybody feel that way? But now is the time where people need that stronger medicine are more open to it. So I just thought we could kind of speak to that from our perspectives, and also the perspectives, maybe what you might want to say, and just what you want for your studio over the coming year and for people who come. And then also just for us to maybe just say something about the breath work and our collaboration around that. So you go.
Okay. Well, it's true what you say, that yes, we have yoga classes, and yoga is a healing modality for sure. But for me, it's bigger. Like the whole studio is, I see it like a healing sanctuary and energetic container. Most days I'm doing some kind of meditation, kind of like feel like I'm holding the container of that, setting the intention that it's a healing space, and hoping that when people come that they feel it, and usually I think they do. And so yeah, I think having the breath work feels to me like kind of like a little bit of an up level, just a desire for people to take it to the next step. I guess that was my experience doing breath work. I felt like it helped when I first did it. I think it was 2006 or something with you, a long time ago.
Can I just ask quickly as a side, where was that?
The breath.
Yeah, where do we do it?
We did it in well, we was from BNI. I think it was like one of that lady's Pilates studio. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. In San Rafael.
Yeah,
Yes.
San
Okay.
Rafael.
Minjay. Okay, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I had at that time literally just opened up to this idea of spirituality at all. Before that, I was probably an atheist, but I started having these ideas of like, oh, there's something more. And when I was doing the breath work, I felt it just like broke through a lot of all the ways that I kept myself in the box, all the ways that I would stay in fear or stay small. I don't know. It just like broke through those things. It opened me up, and it felt was really important on my path. I think I literally met you. I read a book, Power of Now, and that was like this big awakening. And I think the same week I met you. I don't think there's any coincidence that it was so supportive. And um,
It's interesting because you're a psychologist, and when I met you, I mean, you were transition. Yeah,
I'm,
yeah, but it was your identity. It was
yeah,
your only identity, and I think that what what the I think there's two parts to FG breathwork. One part is does involve some psychology, because you sort of maybe after the experience maybe need some understanding to organize your mind around what's happened. But the thing that the breath work does is it absolutely completely takes you away from that part of the linear mind that that is always structurally organizing and thinking about how to deal with things. I have a great example. I got some body work about a week ago from somebody I really love, who I had met through BNI, and she was reading something in a situation. She said, "You're angry," and I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "This is what happened. I accept it." And da 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 da. And about a week later, I realized I was really angry, and I was like, "Oh, I
hold on.
see."
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My kid is here. Hold on.
Okay. No
Interrupt.
problem. Well, so what I was going to say was that I I often am with people and I watch how they organize things, and you know, as a person who helps people, I'm always attuning to what's going on underneath everything else. So someone will say, "Oh, no, this is what's going on," from that level of the mind, but I didn't know that I did it too, and that the reason why I didn't know I was upset was because I could understand what was happening and accept that that's what it was. And I felt like I was supposed to accept it. So I was pushing aside that on a more primitive level. So to me, the thing that breathwork does when you do this kind of breathing, which is an hour laying on your back, basically consciously hyperventilating, you immediately go beyond that part of the linear mind that is always saying, this is reality, this is what's going on. And the connection I want to make is that we're in this time where there's an urgency to live more purposefully and to deal with things that need healing because there's so much more upset and fear and crisis out in the world around us. And when I met you, you were a psychologist, at least acting like there was a certain kind of way that you organized things, and the breath work actually sort of fit more part of your real personality, which over these last 15 years, I now see you're just much more who you really are. It's
True.
both.
Yeah. I mean, but yes, as being a psychologist, but I think lots of people are I was very stuck. I still am. I can be very mental, worry, let things cycle in my head over and over. And so, yeah, the breath work helped breaks through that because you're not in your mind when you're focused on the breath and you're having all this energy moving in your body. I like it.
Well, some people might ask the question, well, then if it's so powerful, and then why do you go back to worrying?
Oh, that's a
And
good question.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, you say your answer, I'll say mine.
I mean, mine is that we're not perfect human beings, and these are ingrained ways of being. What I know is that I do it less and less, and I catch myself a lot more quickly.
Yeah, I think the habits of life, spiritual transformational things sometimes can be very easy, but changing the habits of life that are earthly can be hard because it's a slower process. And I think that what breathing like that does is put you in contact with the truth, and then you have a choice. But that if you don't know on a visceral level that the worry or upset that you have is part of a disconnect from the totality of what you are and what your potential is, then you will become identified with it and just live in that worry. And I think even for you, like the other day, and maybe we should or shouldn't be talking about this, but because anytime we talk about pandemic or COVID, everybody's mind goes this way or this way, and like there's almost like no nuance or gradient between the worlds. But you were dealing with some stuff in your studio around protocols and COVID and that sort of thing, and then when I asked you about it, and you had basically had said, well, this is these I'm just this all this stuff had come up for you was just personally you knew it wasn't you weren't really that identified with the part of you that was struggling with it, but you were almost in some ways, to me, is the most powerful thing is like when you're really accepting the foibles of your lousy personality or problems you have, you actually can move through it a lot quicker because you're not so. What I saw was that you weren't so identified with the part of you that was upset.
It's true. But, and yeah, I think I'm better now at seeing like what's me, what's not me. And so if there's a stressful thing happening or other people are in a lot of fear, just me personally, I'm kind of empathic. I can easily kind of go into the fear or my fear comes up. So people go into fear and then sometimes I can find myself like in the turmoil of it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at coming back
And
to the center.
going back to the beginning of the conversation, you wouldn't be able to do what you do and help people the way you did if you didn't find yourself porous to be feeling all those parts. You know, the better the surfer, the bigger the wave. Like you're dealing with a lot of parts at any one given moment, and you're just trying to become a better surfer, not to say, oh, I don't want to feel anything anymore.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
it more intense. Actually, I was at
Yeah.
this weekend, I was with my women's group. We were doing a retreat and I really, because this is a group of women been working together for 5 years. We have a teacher and we've done so much work, sometimes breath work, other kinds of spiritual practice, so lots of just clearing, which I think breath work's about, clearing the basement, clearing the gunk, that we were in such this flow state. But the flow state doesn't mean, oh, everything's perfect. We would be in like, everyone's like dancing around, feeling like our powerful energy. And then like someone's like crying hysterically and like we're just in the flow of life. And
Yeah.
it's fun. It doesn't feel obstructed. It just feels like this is how life moves. And there's no good or bad, right or wrong. It's just like you're just in the flow of what's happening.
Hmm. Um, in a way, that's really what happens in the breath work, right?
Yeah. I thought of it this whole weekend. I was like, this is like being in like a breath for the whole weekend because that's how it was.
Do we, for our intention is to share this. Do we want to say, or should I say something more specifically about what we're going to do, like what the breath is and what they're going to do when they come in to have the breath?
Yeah, do that. Let them
Okay.
know.
Why are you laughing? You
I
making
think,
fun of me?
yeah, I think it's a good idea. You should tell them what it is.
Listen, folks. I want to invite you to consciously hyperventilate. First of all, hyperventilation means hyper just means more than enough, and ventilation is breathing. But it's thought of as a really bad thing because when people have panic attacks and stuff like that, they're having this body involuntary response to some memory. So they start to like do this thing and they're breathing. This is not that. You're laying on your back, obviously will be guided. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've probably breathed 20,000 people. You're laying on your back, your mouth is open, you're breathing really full on the inhale, and then you're just letting go on the exhale, just like that, nonstop for an hour. So it's a conscious choice. And that breath in is taking in the power of the universe, the chi that has given you life, and accepting what happens when you start to breathe like that. Um, I just want to make a side note because, the thing about COVID is as a symbol, I mean, we're dealing with a global pandemic that affects the lungs. And you could say the lungs of the planet are having trouble breathing in a way. And people have different opinions about what's going on. But to me, the most powerful thing you can do to not only to be alive, but to come in contact with the spirit that gives you life is through your breath. So breathwork is the most powerful, most sacred, and most simple practice because it's it's literally the most essential building block of life is to take a breath. So we're just doing it in a very intense way. There's a masculine and a feminine side to it too, because you breathe full like that. Anybody can do it. And you maybe people watch me do it and they go, "There's no way I could do that." But young and old, healthy, not healthy, anybody can do it. It's not difficult physically because you're laying on your back. You just have to be willing as you start to breathe like that to experience the things that will come up. You might be laughing and dancing or crying and screaming or physical sensations, but in the end, you're going to feel the gunk, as you call it, is kind of cleared out. And to me, if you want to keep your lungs healthy and you want to be in touch with the the potential and the force of life, to say yes to life. Because I think one thing that you and I are agreeing on, and it's the only little small statement I'll make, is that we want to we're straddling the the relationship we all have around this because we all have different perceptions and opinions about it. And I want to be respectful to all the different opinions, but I don't want to live in fear, and I don't because it's not gonna help me. I want to find the opportunity, and I think the thing that I want to leave people with is, and why I thought, hey, let's have this conversation, is that you and I, we want to continue to help people, but we want to adapt to the time we're in, and you for your studio and me for leading breathwork, and our collaboration is really about that, is to say we're not saying yes to fear because fear isn't real. We want to say yes to life, and that connection, which we have is how we met, is breathing. So the purpose of coming is to move through your own fears and come in contact with the direct thing that gives you your life purpose and the meaning to your life. So
The thing I just want to add, there's something so special about doing it with a group of people because we're connecting with our own life force, divinity, but we're also connecting with everybody else, listening to everyone else breathe or someone else cries. It kind of gives some permission for the next person to cry or laugh or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in this times too, and to be able to, when we go in and out of fear so much, to have like a supportive community is also so key. So
I think you have your protocols in the studio for people coming in, but we're not going to be wearing masks and we are going to be breathing together and sharing breath. And in some ways that's fearful, but on the other hand, like this, there's a power about being together. Like I did breath work for, it's been more than a year online. In some ways it was great because people were like, I don't have to get in the car. And I mean, all the things that pandemic did for lots of things. But now that I'm out in person again, I realize the power of it's what you said. Like when people are together and they breathe together, there's another energy that happens to the group that transforms everybody because the group's energy, and that really has to happen in person. So that is what we're offering is the power of the group
yeah.
when
And
we're maskless and breathing
yeah,
around
but
each
there
other.
also everyone has to be vaccinated. So
Yeah.
we, that's, to me, that feels safe. And everyone makes their own choices about what's safe and not safe. And
Can people non-vaccinated come if they have a COVID test? Or
no, they just have this in the studio. It's just a general policy right now that everyone has to be vaccinated for anything in the
yeah,
studio.
got it. Okay, good. All right. Well, this was really great. Thanks
Yeah,
for
fun.
chatting. Okay,
Excited for our workshop.
me too.